Afternoon. The next topic is Ni hard cast iron. Okay, so we have already seen the different types of cast irons. Next topic is Ni hard cast iron. So Ni and Cr means nickel and chromium is added in this cast iron to improve the hardness, toughness and wear resistance. Okay, but nickel is good graphitizer, hence there is a danger of graphitization. So because of nickel, graphitization takes place. So to avoid graphitization, chromium is added. Okay, hence nickel with chromium is added in Ni hard cast iron. Okay, to prevent graphitization, chromium is added in this cast iron. So composition of cast iron, this Ni hard cast iron is 3.5% nickel and 1 to 3% chromium is added, and rest is iron and carbon. Okay, so properties. So poor impact strength and fatigue resistant due to continuous carbides. Okay, impact strength and fatigue resistance is poor. Then hardness is in between 550 to 700 bhn, Brinell hardness number. To avoid the continuous carbides, 4.4 to 8% of nickel plus 4 to 15% of chromium is added to cast iron. Okay, so such cast iron is called as modified nickel hard cast iron. Okay, next applications of nickel hard cast iron. So parts of coal pulverizers and mill liners are mostly the applications of Ni hard cast irons. Next is Ni resist cast iron. So Ni is added, nickel is added to improve the corrosion resistance. So more percentage of nickel acts as austenite stabilizer, hence such a cast iron called as austenitic cast iron. Okay, so more percentage of nickel is also austenite stabilizer, hence austenitic cast iron is also known as nickel resist cast iron. So composition of Ni resist cast iron, 14 to 16% of nickel. Okay, so here percentage of nickel is in between 14 to 36%, plus 1 to 5% of chromium is added. So why this is added? To prevent the graphitization, and plus sometimes 5 to 8% of copper is added. So flakes or nodules of graphite uniformly distributed in matrix of austenite. Okay, then properties: better corrosion resistance and erosion resistance. Then hardness is between the 100 to 250 bhn, Brinell hardness number. And applications: liners, slurry handling equipments, etc. So this is Ni resist cast iron. If you see the hardness of Ni resist is 100 to 250, and Ni hard 550 to 700. So Ni hard is very hard material, hence it is known as Ni hard, nickel hard, and this is Ni resist. So next topic is mehanite alloy. So graphite flakes are non-metallic in nature and thus forms very weak bonding between metallic matrix. Okay, so you already know there is a graphites in this cast iron, graphite flakes. So because of this graphite flakes, the bonding between the metal molecules is not very good, or bonding is not strong, weak bonding is there. So because of that weak bonding, thus the disrupt of continuity in metallic matrix. Okay, because of this improper bonding or weak bonding. So larger the flake size, more the disruption, and thus reduces the strength and toughness. Okay, hence we need to reduce the length of this graphite flakes, or we need to change the size and shape of this graphite flakes. If the size of graphite flakes is very small and they are uniformly distributed, and hence strength and toughness will improve. Okay, so the best method to reduce the size and uniform distribution of graphite flakes is by addition of small amount of inoculant. Okay, so inoculants are added, so such as aluminium, titanium, zirconium, silica carbide, then and calcium carbon are added. Okay, so they promotes nucleation resulting in small grains and reduces the size of flakes. Such cast iron is known as mehanite alloy. Okay, so in mehanite alloy there is a carbide graphite flex, so we need to reduce the length of this graphite flex. So to reduce the length of graphite flex and to distribute it uniformly in pure whole metal, we need to add some inoculant. So aluminum, titanium, zirconium are the common inoculants added in this alloy. So by addition of these inoculants, what happens? Nucleation takes place and small grains of formation is taken place, and small graphite flex is also there with uniform distribution. So such a alloy is known as Meehanite alloy. Okay, so you can see the difference: Meehanite type GE 200 and SF 400. The length is reduced here. So good strength and toughness because of good bonding, very good corrosion resistance, very good abrasion resistance, and very good heat resistance. This is the microstructure. Next is introduction to non-ferrous alloy. So we already seen what is ferrous alloys. So ferrous alloy means where ferrous or iron is present in this alloy, and in such alloy which doesn't contain iron, known as non-ferrous alloys. So mostly aluminum alloys, copper alloys, titanium, magnesium alloys, nickel alloys, super alloys and refractory metals, which alloys are commonly available. Okay, so mostly in our syllabus aluminum and copper alloys are there. So we will see further slides. So first is aluminum alloys. So aluminum alloys have low density, okay, 1/3 of the steels. So higher strength to weight ratio. Hence you will see now most of the cars are made by this aluminum alloys. Okay, previously cast iron or steels are used there. Now those are replaced by these aluminum alloys. So high electrical conductivity, 60% of that of copper. Copper is very good conductor of heat and electricity. So aluminum is also good conductor. Next, high oxidation resistance, means it will not corrode easily. Then most recyclable metal, aluminum can be recycled again. So it is alloyed to improve the strength. Aluminum alloyed with any of or combination of 5 elements: copper, manganese, magnesium, zinc and silica. In addition to the alloying, aluminum alloys are also hardened by cold working and by precipitation hardening. So these are the two methods of hardening. First is cold working and second one is precipitation hardening. So typical mechanical properties of these aluminum alloys are low elastic modulus near about 70 gigapascal. Then yield strength is 100 to 400 near about megapascals. So this is the common alloy aluminum silica diagram, ALSI diagram. So in this ALSI diagram you will see this is temperature versus percentage diagram. Okay, means percentage of one metal is added. So this is phase diagram. Okay, so this is phase diagram. So phase diagram of AL and SI. So there are two components, AL and SI. So okay, so you can see here liquid phase is present. Okay, means above that temperature, above this line, all metal is in liquid state. Below this line you will see liquid plus SI. So silica is precipitated here or solidifies here. So liquid plus SI is present here. Okay, you can see here complete solid metal is present, alpha aluminum plus silica. Okay, so here aluminum is also solidifies and silica is also solidifies at this temperature range below 577 degrees centigrade. Okay, and you can see here there are some compositions, liquid plus alpha aluminum and other alloys are there. Okay, so this is simple diagram of aluminum and silica. Next, copper alloys. So copper alloys are metal alloys that have copper as their principal component or main component. So they have high resistance against corrosion The best known traditional types of copper alloys are bronzes, where tin is significant, and brasses using zinc. Okay, so family of these copper alloys brass, and principal alloying elements are zinc, phosphor bronze, tin is added, aluminum bronzes, aluminum is added, silicon bronzes, silicon is added, and cupre nickel silvers, nickel is added in this copper. Okay, so these are the some commonly used copper alloys. So basically in our syllabus, brasses and bronzes are there. First is brass. So brass is a metallic alloy that is made of copper and zinc. The proportion of zinc and copper can be varied to create different types of brasses alloy with varying mechanical and electrical properties. So it is substitutional alloy. Okay, means metal atoms substitute each other. So atoms of two constituent may replace each other within the same crystal structure. So brasses is widely used for decorating, for its bright gold-like appearance, for applications where low friction is required, such as locks, gears, bearings, doorknobs, ammunition, casing and walls, for plumbing and electrical applications, and extensively used in brass musical instruments such as horns, bells, where the combination of high workability and durability is desired. It is also used in zippers. Okay, so these are the brasses. So types of brasses: alpha brasses, alpha beta brasses, brasses, gamma brasses and white brasses. This is the proportion of copper and zinc in all brasses, and here some their notes or more details about these brasses. Okay, next, copper zinc diagram. So this is also phase diagram. You can see here, this is temperature and their composition. So this is phase diagram. There are two elements, copper and zinc. Okay, so two elements or two component phase diagrams means binary phase diagrams. Okay, so here you can see liquid is present here at this temperature range. Here you can see liquid and alpha zinc is there. Okay, here liquid plus alpha is there. Now below this line you can see beta is stable. Okay, and here you can see alpha plus beta, here you can see alpha. Okay, so after you solidify from this portion, means near about at 30% of zinc, you will get alpha brass there. Okay, here alpha plus beta is there, here beta plus gamma is there, gamma plus beta is there. Okay, so these are the phases observed in this copper and zinc diagram, phase diagram. Next, bronzes. So bronze is alloy consisting of primarily copper and 12% of tin. Okay, and often with addition of some other metals such as aluminum, manganese, nickel and zinc, and sometimes non-metals or metalloids such as arsenic, phosphorus and silicon are added. Commonly phosphorus is added. So these additions produces a range of alloys that may be harder than copper alone or have other useful properties such as stiffness, ductility and machinability. So bronzes are typically very ductile alloys, and bronze is better conductor of heat and electricity than most of the steels. So copper based alloys have lower melting points than steels or irons and are more readily produced from their constituent metals. So they are generally about 10% denser than steels, although alloys using aluminum or silicon may be slightly less dense. So bronze is usually non-magnetic, but certain alloys containing iron or nickel may have magnetic properties. So this is copper and tin diagram, means bronze. Okay, here you can see temperature and here you can see composition. So this is also phase diagram of two components, copper and tin. Okay, So you can see here is liquid present above that temperature, above this line. This is liquidus line. Above this liquidus line you will see liquid is there, and this is bottommost position or solid at room temperature, alpha plus eta. Okay, so alpha plus eta is there. So this is the copper tin diagram. Here you can see alpha phase is there, here liquid plus beta is there, alpha plus beta. So there are the phase distribution of copper tin diagram. You need to remember this copper tin diagram. Okay, and you can see here we have A, B, C. These are the points. This is points A, okay, B, C, D. These are the points, and at what temperature this point located, and what is the percentage of tin there at this point. Okay, so you need to remember these points, A to W points. So basic difference between brass and bronze. So first, brass. By combining the different alloys of brasses, it is possible to reach perfect designification resistance, excellent machinability, and good cold workability. Designification resistance due to the absence of zinc is in most cases limited machinability. So basically brass has high machinability and bronzes have low machinability. Means brass is slightly difficult to bronzes are difficult to machine as compared to brasses. So brasses are easily machined. The price of basically lower than bronze. Okay, so brass is cheaper due to the absence of tin. Okay, so tin is relatively expensive. So brass is easier to use in tapping process because the liquid phase in this chamber keeps a constant physical state. Bronze, upper layer of chamber is relatively fast being covered by solid state, which makes the tapping process more difficult. Okay, so tapping is nothing but a creating internal threads. Okay, so tapping is also a machining process. So brass is having excellent machinability properties, hence tapping is also easier in these brasses. It is possible to achieve good hot ductility by combining the alloys. Due to the good hot ductility, it is impossible to create very complex form in the mold. So brass has yellow color, somehow similar to gold. It relatively resistant to tarnishing and often used decoration. Commercial bronzes, otherwise known as brass, is 90% copper and 10% tin. Contains no tin. It is stronger than copper and it has really excellent ductility. It is used for screw and wires. So brasses is a lead addition for better machinability. The quantity of lead and in alloy is always controlled, and it is sanitary industries. It is reduced to negligible amount. Due to the absence of lead, bronzes fits better to the manufacturing of walls, fittings, circuit regulating walls, dynamic control fittings, and thermostatic walls, but the production cost rise significantly. Brass melts at lower temperature and therefore uses less energy to melt. It machines and polishes much easier than bronze, and therefore the price to make fitting from it is lower. It also wears out quicker, and therefore the customer will have to purchase replacement parts much sooner. When steel is excluded from the discussion, bronze is superior to iron in nearly every applications. While it develops a patina, it does not oxide, and it is considerably less brittle than iron and has lower casting temperature. Steel, of course, has properties which bronze cannot compete. Okay.